Don't get caught up in what the consequences are. They're not the important thing. It's just that you follow through with them. And they understand that they're doing something good to make up for something bad that they did. That's all, no shaming. It's just about being accountable and making up for what they did wrong. That's all. Welcome to the Bratbusters Parenting Podcast. This is episode 2, and we'll be discussing consequences today. My name's Lisa Bunnage. I'm a parenting coach, and I'm here with my daughter, Amy Bunnage.
And my name's Amy. I do a lot of the marketing, social media, and planning for Bratbusters. And consequences is something I would say is probably one of the most asked questions that you get on your social media.
Yeah, it is. And yet we talked about this. Whenever we put a video out naming consequences, it doesn't do well. So all these people are asking about consequences. So we put out a video and then no one looks at it. It's the weirdest thing.
I mean, that's social media for you, though.
Yeah, it's hard to predict because we just want to put out stuff that you want. And so we don't want to put out stuff that you don't want. So anyway, we're going to talk about it here. Consequences. So what we're going to do is we're just going to be answering questions. But basically, my behavior board has rules and consequences on it for every member of the family, 3 and above. So if you break a rule, parents included, you break a rule, there's a consequence. The kids, you have one consequence because you know you're going to do it. But the kids might not want to do the consequence, so that's why we have 2 of them. The first consequence is a positive action. You get them to do something like a chore usually. And then the second consequence is there if they won't do the first one. So let's say they refuse to do the clean a window or whatever the consequence is. Then you say, fine, then 24-hour media blackout starts now and start the timer. So we'll get into this in more detail as we go along. So Amy, you're going to be asking me questions that people have submitted.
So this isn't a user submitted question, but something you get all the time is, but wouldn't that make people hate chores?
Who cares if they hate chores or not? Chores are they're not. You're not supposed to like them. Everyone wants to make everything easy for their kids. You don't want to make chores easy. It doesn't matter if they don't like it. They're still doing a good deed. That's the whole point. They do something naughty, so they replace it with a good deed. So a chore is a good deed. They don't have to hate it. The problem is if they love doing it, sometimes little kids, their rule is no hitting, so they'll hit and then they'll have to clean a window. If they happen to love cleaning windows, sometimes they'll hit more so that they get to clean windows. So that, we kind of have to find a balance between that. But anyway, generally, it doesn't matter, if they think of a chore as something horrible. That's okay.
Yeah. And you always talk about the fact that your kids are watching you, and that's why you're on the board too. Is that right?
Well, they're watching you. Yeah, but because you're a leader. Leaders lead by example, not just by dictating or telling them stuff. So if they see you making mistakes, which is fine, there's nothing wrong with making mistakes, so long as you're accountable. So my kids loved it when I messed up. If I forgot to do something, if I promised I was going to take them somewhere, they loved it, didn't you?
Oh, it was the best.
Yeah, because then I had to do something for them. That's like, Mom, you forgot to do that. And I'd say, oh, shoot, what do you want? We'd love to go to the water slide park tomorrow. Something like that.
Yeah, it was mutual, though.
It was back and forth. If I made a mistake, I made amends to them. If they made a mistake, they made amends to me. And there was no shame in it. That's the thing, is there's no shaming in any of this. You don't go overboard discussing it or anything. Just say, oh, you messed up. Here's the consequence. So there's no shaming and blaming and making someone feel bad and discussing it later on. Don't do that.
I think sometimes the consequences get a negative reputation because I think when people think of consequence, it's always negative. But I think something with the behavior board is it's more focused on just you did something not so good. Now you're doing something nice.
Yeah. And your consequence, the parents, is let's say you yelled. So your rule is no yelling and you yell. And then you have to play tag with them or hide and seek with them for 10 minutes. Is that a negative? Or is it just doing something nice for someone else? All it says is you're willing to make up for your mistakes. And oftentimes it's just doing something nice for the other person, which is often a chore. Maybe they have to make your bed that morning or clean your bathroom sink or something, just doing something good.
Perfect. I think we might get into the questions now.
Good.
So the first question is from Sarah from the US. What are consequence ideas for a 2-year-old when they hit, scream, or throw?
Okay, we don't really do consequences so much. We do consistent corrective actions. So if they hit, did you say read that again, if they hit, scream,
or throw and they're 2 years old?
Okay, screaming we don't address. That's more in the attitude department. But if they throw something or hit, so it's an action, we use consistent corrective actions. Now, that could be removing them from the fun, removing what they threw, like put it away. So maybe they threw a toy that they actually like. So I would put that away for the rest of the day, let's say, or just for an hour or something. Or so you remove the fun from them or them from the fun just for a period of time. Now, you have to be on your ball, on your game with this, because if you're not on the ball with this stuff, they're going to pick up on that. So you have to be willing to follow through every single time they do it. So that's why we only select one behavior that you want to correct per week or whatever, because it's going to be hard work. You got to be watching them like a hawk. And they will eventually learn, but they learn through repetition. They might not learn the 49th time, but they might learn the 50th time. But yeah, I don't know what that magic number is. They're all different, but they don't usually learn the first time because toddlers don't have the ability to think and stop before they act. There's some of them maybe do more than others, but basically they work on impulses. So that's why you have to use the repetition. It's a different way of learning. It's just repetition, and they don't really stop and think. They just don't do it because they get used to, you having a consequence each time. Let me just make this simpler. Let's say they touch a hot oven 9 times. They might not touch it the 10th time. So and are they thinking about it? Not so much. They just have learned by rote not to touch it. That's what we're working with, that type of thinking.
So when we're talking about consequences, we're talking 3 years old.
When we're talking about consequences, the behavior board, that is 36 months.
And then you clarify, so toddlers, in your opinion, the age?
In my opinion, a toddler is 16 to 35 months, but that's just my own view. Babies are 15 months and under.
Yeah, just to give the audience context on like the ages that you're speaking about.
Oh, that makes sense because a lot of people consider a 4-year-old a toddler, whereas I consider that 3 and 4 to me is a preschooler, 5 and up is a school age, but the behavior board starts at 3. That's because they have the ability to stop and think before they act. Doesn't mean they're going to do it every time, but they have the ability to learn to stop and think before they act at 3 years old.
Well, just like us adults, we're not going to do it every time. But
oh, gosh, no.
So same idea.
Exactly.
Okay, next question is Anna from Netherlands. So my 3-year-old doesn't really respect me. A lot of yelling, throwing, even when I say don't do it, hits me when he's mad. So I want to change start to change my behavior and start to be a leader with the help with your help. But what kind of consequences are okay for a 3-year-old? I can't take media away for 24 hours. He doesn't really care if he doesn't have a tablet or so on. So what kind of consequences can I give?
Okay. Well, you don't start with taking something away. That's the negative deprivation, which is the secondary consequence, which you hope you don't have to use, but you might have to. So the first consequence is just doing a good deed. He could sweep a floor, clean out a bathroom. Okay, so I would say to a child, your consequence is do a chore within 15 minutes of being asked to do so. But make sure that chore is only like 2 minutes long, and it might just be washing one window, cleaning one side of the room on the baseboards. It's usually something where they're on their hands and knees doing something like that. They don't usually like that as much. Or it could be cleaning off a bathroom mirror or just something little, one little thing. But you say you've got 15 minutes to do it. So you go like this and you say you got 15 minutes to do it and it starts now. You're not reminding them. A lot of parents get pulled into this. They start reminding their kids, okay, hurry up, you better get that done. You can say 10 minutes left and they might have left the room. I don't care. I'm standing there all by myself with my timer. So you're just like a timekeeper at this point. So then you say, okay, 5 minutes left, but do not remind them to do it. You're just timekeeping. And then beep, beep, time's up. 15 minutes is over. They never did do that chore, whatever it is. It could be anything. Cleaning out the cat litter, cleaning out or filling up the cat's or the dog's water bowl. You see, it could be anything. Don't get caught up in what the consequence is. Just something that is like a chore or a good deed. Anyway, that 15 minutes is up and they didn't do it. Now you say, okay, so now we're going to take something away, 24-hour media blackout, or if you don't use media, which happens a lot, then you say, okay, we're going to put your favorite toy away now for 24 hours. Okay, so I don't like talking about inventing leverage so much because a lot of people want to start with this. If you don't have anything to take away, you invent something to take away. And the reason I don't like talking about this right away is because everyone wants to just use this one because it's a really good thing to use. So inventing leverage is if you don't have any media or they don't have a favorite toy that they care about, you invent something. So you say, okay, you chose not to do that chore within 15 minutes. So now we're going to go to the second consequence. And it goes something like this. We were going to go out, we were going to surprise you and go out for ice cream tonight, but now we're not going to. So you've just invented something to take away. And then they're going to have a fit, right? You were never going to go out for ice cream, but you say you were. And then they'll say, but can we go tomorrow? Can we go tomorrow? And say, well, I don't know. Like, you don't promise anything, because then it becomes a bribe. If you're good tomorrow, we will. Don't get pulled into that. That's a big mistake. So you don't use it as a bribe, but you just used it. You just were going to do it anyway, but now you're going to take it away. That's kind of mean. I don't really like doing inventing leverage, but sometimes that's all we've got. So that's a sort of the last step. So the first step is the positive action consequence. If they won't do that, you do the negative deprivation. If you have nothing to take away, you invent something that you were never going to give them, but you say you were, and now you pull it away. Does that make sense? I feel like I was kind of going on about that one, but
No, that does. It's like a last resort in your mind.
it is, because I think it's kind of mean, because you're always saying, oh, we're going to go to Disneyland. Now we're not. It's kind of, I don't know. I really don't like it, but sometimes that's all we've got.
Yeah. Okay, the next one is Lynn from Canada. So 3 years old. What are some consequences if she's mean to her brother and doesn't want to clean up her toys? I just need suggestions.
Okay, they're two very different answers. Let's just do the brother thing. I'm going to assume it's a little brother, not an older brother. So she's 3 years old and she's mean to her little brother. I would put on the behavior board, don't be mean to your little brother. And then I would write down what that means or explain it to her, because usually when they're 3, they don't read. So you're drawing pictures on the behavior board. By the way, that behavior board's completely free. You can check that out. Where would it be? Where would people be able to find the behavior board?
Bratbusters.com. You should be able to find it.
Okay. So what you do is don't be mean to your brother and explain what that means. Hitting, grabbing his toys off him, whatever. Okay. So when she does hit him, one of my favorite things to do is if she hits him, you say, oh, you hit, let's go to the behavior board. You always go right to the board and you say, now he gets to play with your favorite toy for a half an hour, or 15 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever. And you sit and play with him and she can't join in. So that is her punishment for her being mean to him. She has to do something nice, like sharing her favorite toy with him. Okay. But I'm going to tell you a really cute story. This one was a client. And it was a 3-year-old little boy, and he had a little sister. She was 15 months old. And she usually would hit him first, and he'd hit her back. And of course, he'd knock her right to the ground because she's so little. So the mother put no being mean to your little sister, and it was going okay. But one day the mom, I think it was quite soon after she put the board up, she was watching this, and the little girl hit her big brother as usual, just to get his attention. That's why she was doing it. So rather than knock her to the ground, which she usually did, he took her hand and walked her over to the behavior board, and he said, no hitting. I thought that was so adorable. So he was learning not to hit by being the hero with her, really. He was learning how to lead her in a way, but you don't want your older kids leading their little ones, but he kind of was in that moment. It was quite adorable. So he sort of became the hero. Anyway, and then they fixed it all up from there. But yeah, so share their favorite toy to the one that they hit. Now, if it's an older sibling, they don't care about that favorite toy. So they just have to do a chore or something. Or let's say they do already have chores that they have to do. Then the hitter has to do the victim's chores for that day, or one of their chores. So they're doing something nice for the victim. So what was the other one about there was 2 things about the hitting, and then what was the second thing?
Doesn't want to clean up toys.
Doesn't want to clean up toys. Okay, so, well, the first thing I recommend is get a toy rotation system in place. So that means they only have a few toys out at any given time, and you just rotate them around. I have lots of videos on that. So, okay. But anyways, toy rotation system. So you say to them, your rule is that you have to put away your toys within 10 minutes of being asked to do so, because they hardly have any toys out anyway. So because you're doing this toy rotation system. So let's say you want the toys cleaned up. So the rule on the behavior board is put your toys away within 10 minutes of being asked to do so. And then it's up to them. Just time it. Don't keep reminding them. Just say it starts now, 10 minutes, and then just follow through with the consequences. If they won't do that, then just do a chore, the same as usual. Do a chore. Don't get caught up in what the consequences are. They're not the important thing. It's just that you follow through with them. And they understand that they're doing something good to make up for something bad that they did. That's all. No shaming. It's just about being accountable and making up for what they did wrong. That's all. But yeah, just keep using that behavior board if they're 3 and above. It's a really good thing to do.
So you get this question quite a bit. It's about natural consequences and the idea that the punishment has to fit the crime. So you're saying it doesn't always have to.
Yeah, the punishment fitting the crime. It is, it's good. You can do that, but it's not always doable. So like if they hit someone, they have to share their favorite toy with them, but it's not always appropriate because an older sibling doesn't want to play with a 5-year-old's, if he's 10, he doesn't want to play with a 5-year-old's toys. So you can do it if you want, but don't get caught up in that. Again, you're getting caught up in what the consequence is. It's the follow through. It's better to have a worse consequence, something that isn't that great, but follow through every single time. Consistency is the key. The message you're sending is, if you do something wrong, you have to do something good. So I know people get caught up in consequences. I get it. They seem to think that that is the magic potion. It is not at all. Doesn't matter what they do. Like if my kids had acted out, I would have said, "Oh, just brush my hair for 5 minutes." Is that appropriate? Were they pulling my hair out? Was that a natural consequence? No. It's just that you do something naughty or you forget to do something you should have done. And you can brush my hair for 5 minutes. Something like that. So don't get caught up in what the consequence is. Just the follow through, the consistency.
Okay. And the other follow-up questions, obviously we want to be fostering siblings getting along. Would there be any resentment that's built up by having to share their favorite toy?
So?
Yeah.
All they have to do is not hit that sibling again. I don't worry about that. It's okay if they get mad. And they're going to get mad at you. You always want kids to get mad at you when you're disciplining. You don't want them to get mad at themselves because that's shaming and blaming and low self-esteem and they feel like garbage about themselves. You do not want that. You want them to get mad at you. They tend not to get mad at the younger sibling. They get mad at you. That's okay. That's part of it. They need somewhere to vent their anger. Okay? So don't worry about it. They tend to go after you, not the sibling.
And is that because it's not like the younger sibling told them they have to do that?
That's right. I told you. I quite happily take that on. That's them learning a lesson. Their anger is them learning that you're the leader. So it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
By the way, when you get really good at this, they don't fight anyway. When there's a leader in the house, there's no fighting with siblings. Did you kids ever fight?
I'm sure once in a while we did, but it was more pestering each other.
But yeah, even that, if I'd given you the look, it would have stopped, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they didn't. They were she was trying to get his attention more because she's 5 years younger, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thought he was the coolest.
Yeah.
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 You're still cool, by the way. I'm just telling you right now.
Covering her butt here.
So, Agnes from the United States. My son, 3 years old, hits us despite the consequences. After hitting, he takes out the vacuum cleaner and cleans up. He assumes that he can hit or do something outside of the rules, and then he just has to do his duty. Should we then immediately ban TV after hitting?
Yeah, that happens quite often because the punishment is far easier. Like the crime is too much fun and the punishment isn't hard enough. So what you do with that is you say, and you don't tell him this ahead of time, by the way. Wait till as soon as he hits again, you go to the board and you say, "I'll tell you what, this isn't working really." So what we're going to do is we're going to go straight to media blackout. You go right to the second one because it's become a pattern and he's not learning the easy way. So you just go to the hard way and that's it.
Perfect. That is the end of the questions.
And there were a lot of 3-year-olds in there.
A lot of 3-year-old questions about consequences.
Which is interesting because that's when consequences start, is at 3. And like I said, don't get caught up in what the consequence is. It's the follow through, the consistency, the repetition. And that is what matters. You're sending the message that things are changing. I know what I'm doing. And every time you do something naughty or bad or whatever, then you're going to have to follow it up with something good. That's all. Don't get caught up in what the good is, what the consequence is. It's important that you have one, but don't get too worried about what it is.
Great. I think we'll end it there.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you're ready to dive deeper, check out bratbusters.com to learn more about the Behavior Board, parenting courses, and private one-on-one coaching with Lisa. The information provided in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional advice. Lisa is a parenting coach, mom, and grandmother. She is not a licensed psychologist or counselor. Her services do not replace the care of psychologists or other healthcare professionals. For a full disclaimer, please visit bratbusters.com/disclaimer.